Alright, good morning guys. We're going to try a video lesson today. We're going to talk about angle pairs. Mr. McGarity and I will be moving around the room to help you out if you get stuck on anything, but please do watch this video first so you can kind of learn about all the different angle pairs we're going to talk about. You can see we're going to determine angle pairs, and that's going to help you to understand relationships between angles, which are going to be coming up a lot in this class. You'll know you got it when you get 80 on IXL. I'll even show you a few IXL problems if you watch to the end of the video. First type of angles we need to know about are vertical angles. Now, you might think vertical, up and down. Well, 2 and 4 are vertical angles, and that means that they're going to be congruent. They got the same equal measure, but be careful because they don't have to be up and down. 1 and 3 are also vertical angles. So in geometry class, vertical angles just means they're on opposite sides of the x. Where you see two lines crossing, you're going to have vertical angles on opposite sides, like 1 and 3 or 2 and 4. And those will be equal to each other. 1 equal to 3, 2 equal to 4. They are vertical pairs. All right, adjacent. This is another word that you'll see in here sometimes. It basically means next door to. They share a side. They're bumping right up next to each other. Angle 1 is adjacent to angle 2. Doesn't necessarily mean anything about their measure, but they're bumping right up into each other. Complementary angles. These are angles that add up to 90 degrees. Angle 1 and angle 2 would be an example. You can tell because you see the box in the corner, that's telling you that the total is 90 degrees. So these are definitely complementary. Supplementary angles, these add up to 180. They will usually look like two adjacent angles sitting on top of the same straight line. So we know it's 180 degrees if we put a protractor right on top of that straight line. Well, part of that 180 is an angle 1. The other part is an angle 2, so the two of them add up to 180. All right, here's a question. Which one is vertical with angle ABC? You'll notice we're using three-letter name for an angle pair, for an angle here. So ABC would be this one, sitting kind of right where the B is. Vertical to that would be the opposite side of the X, so down in here, and that would be angle DBE. That would be one way of naming it. So you could call it angle DBE, or you could call it EBD. But the B needs to be in the middle because it is the vertex. And when we name an angle, we would use a little angle symbol like this. So this would be our answer, angle DBE, and it would be this one right in here. Okay, right there. All right. On to the next one. Which one is adjacent with ABC? Well, adjacent just means next to. So if this one is ABC, kind of right where the B is up here, and we can trace that off, A, B, C, and know that that's the one it's talking about. Well, adjacent means next door to. It means bumping right up against it. That would have to be either this one, okay, or this one. Either of those would be considered adjacent. Let's do a couple different colors here. So this one that I've kind of marked off in red here, and this one that I'm kind of marking off in blue here. Either of these would be adjacent angles to ABC, and the ways we could name those in red, let's call this one angle ABD. And then over here, we'll go blue, and we'll go CBE for this one. We're going to use three-letter angle names because there's a lot of stuff going on at point B, and we don't want to just say angle B. So keep in mind, either of these angles could have had a different name. If I call it CBE, that's fine, but you could have called it EBC, and that would be fine too. And over here, I chose ABD, but you could have said DBA, and that would have worked too. So either the red one here or the blue one would be adjacent. All right, in this diagram, we got lots of stuff going on, so let's talk about the different pairs. I see some verticals. All right, let's talk about them. One vertical pair that I see would be 2 and 5. They're on opposite sides of the X where two lines are crossing. Another example would be 1 and 4. And another example would be 3 and 6. So these are the vertical pairs that I can see jumping right out at me. Let's switch colors and we'll talk about, how about complementaries? I see some complementaries. Okay, if this is a 90 right here at angle 3, well then I know that it must be a 90 over on the left side of the line too. So angle 1 plus angle 2 must add up to 90. They would be complementary. Also, across from that, this would have to be a 90 down here. 4 and 5 would have to add up to 90. So they would be complementary. All right, if you want a supplementary pair, let's go in green for that. So supplementary could be, we're looking for pairs that make a 180-degree angle. Oh, and actually, when I look closely at this one, I don't see any good supplementary pairs. I see some straight lines, but they're all broken into 3 or more angles. And so, if we're just talking pairs, I don't see any supplementaries. We'll stick with those and then move on to the next one. All right, which angles are complementary? Well, I can answer that. Complementary would have to be 2 and 3. And let's shrink that down so it fits right next to that question. And then let's look over here. Supplementary. Making up a total of 180, a straight line, would be 3 and 4, or 4 and 5. Either of those pairs would be supplementary. So those would be the answers you want on this one. All right, vertical angles. You are looking at opposite sides of an X. So be careful on this one. Some people tend to think that 2 might be vertical to 5, but that's not exactly an X. The vertical pair we can see here are 3 and 5. 3 and 5 would be a good vertical pair on this one. So let's get that in there, and then let's move on. This is just sort of a quick reference for what it means for each pair. Vertical, they're on opposite sides of the X. Adjacent means next to. Complementary adds to 90, and supplementary adds to 180. Your work, IXL C.3. I'm going to show you a couple of problems on there so you can see it. So I'll pull up IXL. I'm under geometry, going to C3. All right, we want an angle that is adjacent to BFC. So I'm looking for something next to BFC. Well, next to BFC, I could go 2 directions. I could either go over here, which would be BFA, or if I wanted, I could have said CFD, and it should accept either one of those answers. And it did. All right, complementary to angle 4. So complementary means adds to 90. Okay, it looks to me like 4 and 3, if I put them together, they would make a 90. Okay, sitting next to that 90 at angle 2. So 4 and 3 is the pair I see. Ooh, but I don't see 3 as a choice. So let's take a second and let's think about that. Well, if 4 and 3 are complementary, maybe there's something else on this diagram that's equal to 3. Okay, that could also be complementary with 4. And sure enough, right across from the 3 is a vertical angle 6. And since vertical angles are the same, they got the same measure, 3 and 6 are equal. So that means 4 and 6 would have to add to 90 also. All right, let's see what we got on this one. Supplementary to CFE. So we look carefully at CFE. We mark it off. It looks like a 90. Okay, and I see that right next to it is another 90, EFA, and so I know that those would add to 180. Let's be careful and see if there aren't any other ones. Remember, I think that CFE is a 90 because it sits next to this 90 and makes a straight line. So any other 90 would be supplementary. Let's look at each one. CFD, too small. That would not add to make 180. DFA, too big. I'm looking for something that looks like a 90, and DFA looks big and obtuse, way more than 90. BFC, BFC does look like 90. All right, notice it's vertical to the 90 at AFE, so of course it's got to be a 90 also. BFC is the other good choice here. If you get one of these where they're looking for multiple answers, take your time and look at each one carefully, and feel free to raise your hand if you want us to take a look at it over your shoulder. All right, last one. An angle that's adjacent to angle 4. Well, I got two choices there. Adjacent just means next to. So it could be 3 or it could be 5. They will take either one. I'm going to put 3. All right, that should get you a good head start on this thing. Hopefully you got an idea what's going on. Watch this video as many times as you need. Pause it, rewind it, do what you need to do, but also know you can raise your hand and ask for help.